what is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut project by death metal band Horrendous. Basically, this project is called Sweet Blasphemies, and it came out in the summer of 2009. Now, the thing about it is the original version of this project only had 5. This is an EP here, but originally in 2009, this particular project only had 5 songs, but they re-released it on CD and vinyl and pitches like that in 2014 with the 6th track, as far as those pitches going to happen now. From what I remember, I was able to listen to earlier the particular 6th song, which is Disgusting Beyond Belief. But the thing about it is, the only real place that has it available for the most part, seemingly, is their Bandcamp, which the pitch behind it, you can only listen to that particular song so many times before you have to purchase it, just within that sense. So it's just kind of within the concept. But for when I remember that particular song, that's one of 2 songs on this product that I don't recommend. So out of the 6 songs on here, I wound up recommending 4. So the only 2 songs I don't recommend would just be Reanimated, and then the 6th song, Disgusting Beyond Belief. But basically the pitch behind this particular group here is just the fact that I kind of saw this. The Needle Job had particularly reviewed this band back in 2023. They had a particularly compelling album that I thought looked interesting, which was Ontological Mysterium, which came out in the summer of 2023. I was kind of caught my interest back in 2023, and I just kind of left it on the back burner as far as this pitch can happen. I wanted to see about some folks as I start to finish up more rock and metal bands that I'm familiar with, like No Doubt and Smash Mouth and Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, some of these type of folks, Evanescence, and like Cobra Starship, some of these type of folks. I'm going to start needing more bands to kind of get to within those tones to kind of find some stuff in terms of metal, especially once you start getting past like the valve of things that were kind of fluorescent throughout radio between like the late 90s and 2000s, more times that I was more familiar with this within those tones. So I look after it. Once you get past like the Foo Fighters, the Tonics, the Evanescences, the Limp Bizkit, some of those type folks, the Corns, which I'm almost done with as well, Corn, some of those type pitches, just kind of within the folks, just needing some new metal within those spheres. Now, in terms of kicking things off starting with music circa 2022, 2024, I kind of want to get back to more things for like the 2010s and just pitches like that. I want to find some bands just within the pitch behind it that has some good times, but just within the tone of just questioning. Because music is kind of getting here and there, the slag that rap music's been kind of taking circa the 2020s, and rock music's kind of here and there in certain patches as well. So it's just kind of within the aspect of just being able to find some bands that have further back albums to question if they made the transaction and the quality jump to the 2020s just within the pitch. But apparently with like, I would have to say with like Horrendous, like their 2023 album was like Decibel's top album in 2023, so I don't know the pitch behind Decibel as much, but just to say critics seem to really like Ontological Mysterium, so I wanted to check out this band, see what they're about. For the most part, this was kind of a tricky band here. This took me back to vibes of folks like Mudvayne and Metallica back in 2015. Just being able to say that this is a quality death metal band. I've only reviewed like one other death metal band, which is just Bathory within those particular pitches, and they were pretty vicious within the tone behind it. But this particular stuff here, the thing that makes this particular band kind of like a gnarl meant to kind of review is just the concept that their setup for how they do songs is just a lot different. They're not just, for one thing, it's not commercial. There weren't any singles. I want to say they didn't start dropping singles with their album until like their 2018 or 2023 albums. It took them about 3rd, 4th album to start making singles with promotion. And on top of that, death metal, black metal, some of those type, doom metal, some of those type ones don't typically have singles because they're not commonly displayed on the radio, just because they're more dark and just kind of like engulfed kind of format just within the pitch as to how some of those things kind of happen. So typically getting promotion for a death metal album is just not that common, but I look within the pitch behind it. On top of that, most of this metal here is just kind of within the pitch that's just a very rough and just kind of scraggly type format that just kind of has the amalgamation. In some of these songs you don't get 2 verses. Some of these songs really have minimal qualities like a hook on here. There's guitar solos in like random places. The get up, it switches. It's just pretty dismantled within the pitch, like the get up of like a normal song format, which is kind of similar to certain folks. There was someone that I reviewed just within the pitch of a few days ago, which was kind of, when I reviewed Electric Callboy or Eskimo Callboy within those pitches, Electric Callboy, that band, that particular format that they did, there's just certain bands that are kind of more dismantled within the pitch, and they just have a lot of vicious kind of exteriors about them where you're not going to just get like the radio single just within the pitch. It's basically like taking a band like Slipknot on like a song like Wait and Bleed, just without like the quality radio ready hook or something like that, and just kind of having the viciousness. And obviously like a song like having like the Slipknot kind of instrumentation, like the same quality that Slipknot has in their guitar work and band work, and then putting that in like a death metal kind of format, which is just kind of the demonic kind of vocals and pitches like that, similar to like Bathory and some of those type folks. And then you have like the random kind of aspect to like the song formats, and that's the carnage that you sort of get. I mean, it's very hell-raising. It's very hell-raising and carnivorous as far as those pitches will kind of happen with it, but it's just within the tone that if you're not used to like, just kind of within the pitch that I feel like this particular band, and just in particular for some of this, just has a learning curve that kind of goes along with it. I feel like I need to start messing with death metal more to see some of these type ones to kind of bridge like the concept, because I feel like there was a gap between how easily I took to water with because I feel like there was a gap with how easily I took to water with Bathory compared to this particular product, and as a result, I would have figured that, judging by how much I and thoroughly enjoyed Bathory, that this would have been like another just simplistic kind of, classic here. But I almost gave this project like a lot lower a score. I was kind of within the pitch just because the formats, like the dismantlement and the randomness as to how these song formats, I mean, the instrumentation on here is very vicious in quality. It's just kind of the concept that it doesn't really have much of a rhythm to it. It just is kind of random for the most part as to what goes along with it. I mean, it works, but it's just random kind of bursts of craziness, as opposed to like the format of having like a hook, having like a bridge, some of those type of things. I mean, it has guitar solos on here, but it's just a very random, sporadic type project. So I was almost tempted. I mean, I originally was only going to recommend like the song "The Mystic" and "Ridiculous Flesh," but I found some other ones on here, just kind of within the pitch, just kind of within the tone, as far as saying, I think the concept behind this particular product, the more I listen to it, I would say this particular product will probably get ironed out further as far as the pitch. I would say the particular thing about this product is it'll probably get ironed out further as far as those fairs going to happen. It's just within the tone that the initial kind of, considering that for the most part, I tried listening to this album a little bit earlier this month, but just within the tone, it's December now, but just within the pitch behind it, like the initial kind of moments of having not listened to Horrendous in the past just kind of has the variation behind it. But that's the initial kind of conduct. So 4 out of 6 on here. So just being able to say there's not really a single off this product. Like I said, the only 2 songs I don't recommend would just be Reanimated and Disgusting Beyond Belief. I look after it here. There's not really like much promotion or a radio single, like I was saying, but probably the closest thing to a pitch of what that manner would kind of be would probably be Putrid Rebirth. So just to say, this is like the closest thing to like relative radio and death metal sense I would have to say within that particular tone. Just kind of some gnarled Dungeon Destroy I would feel like here, and just good for some evenings. It's kind of within the pitch behind it. Putrid Rebirth just kind of feels like Metallica or Megadeth, just within some of their more vicious 80s metal type tones, just within the fare behind it. Back in like the 80s days when they would have like these vicious kind of turn up type ones that were not really radio gloss and pitches like that, but just felt like standard chug along, just kind of traverse type metal within that relative type appeal. There's definitely some good dungeon type music. If you do like Metallica, just within more of their gnarled type sense, it's a good type tone that just kind of has that with like some death metal kind of settings. That's a good type tone for that. Probably the most radio ready it has to say. Just takes it back to like Master of Puppets days and Ride the Lightning days from Metallica, I'd have to say. The Mystic is a nice one as well. This is like a gnarled kind of on the go death metal, I'd have to say here. Just a nice helping of like some manic kind of summer commerce. Basically the concept, like if you would think that death metal for the most part, at least Bathory when I reviewed that album, was mostly just dungeon kind of music for like hangout type fare, just getting, having a box of beer, PlayStation on, some of those type of pitches. But some of this is kind of on the go. It's kind of the concept of just being able to say it's an interesting concept, kind of see some of this death metal with like that normally kind of demonic type flair just in the pitch of kind of being out and about within the commerce of it. It's like some summer hopping. It's kind of miss the heat and kind of traverse within a relative bustle about it. It has a good type tone to have some frenetic type bass. It's being a good peppy type mood. Get some KFC, some pitches like that. Get some standard fare. Get like box of beer, some of those type of things. Just kind of some jolted errands kind of be able to have here just in the pitch behind it. So it's just the frenetic type one, just kind of taking like the demonicness of death metal and then having the pitch behind it, just having something where not just wanting to be situated at the house versus pitch can happen. Just you and some pals or you and some bellas just in the pitch of just kind of some cruise arounds just within like the manicness of that sort of doom that would kind of imply. That's a good, nice one. Ridiculous Flesh is a pretty bitchin' one as well. I'd say it's like a dungeon music bonanza to kind of get here, just let off steam, kind of super hangout fun. I'd have to say about this. Get pizza, loud, get box of pizza type music, get loud, kind of some Friday heat to kind of have here. So this is kind of like the fare, same sort of stuff as Bathory from what I remember off that particular product. Same sort of fare, just within that, just a good, nice one to kind of go crazy to. Probably the most crazy song on this particular product, I'd have to say. I mean, I would say that most of this project is pretty vicious within the tone. I feel like the Mystic is definitely pretty manic, just in a more commerce type setting, but probably, I mean, Putrid Rebirth is a pretty vicious one, but that's just more, seemingly kind of more commercial, at least the closest thing to commercial, but Ridiculous Flesh is probably the one that just is like the most, ready to go for like hangout type fare, just within the sense of like typical kind of death metal and like more around the house type stuff, just from what I gathered from it within the tone behind it. But it's a nice one. And then Disintegrating into Obscurity is a nice one as well. Now this is like some relative makeshift evening dredge to kind of get here, just a couple hairs less crazy than the rest of the project. I'd say you can, it just kind of feels a little bit more melded in like the lone verses on this project. And that's the thing, like I was saying, I would say in the verses, but it's just kind of within the tone that it doesn't have like first verse, second verse. It just has that, and then it's a relatively snappy song, but kind of has a guitar solo, and then that just is just a real random and just crazy type one to kind of get. But it's just, I would say that Disintegrating into Obscurity is some good commerce to kind of get within that tone. So it's not quite as frenetic as the Mystic, but it's just within the tone of just like that slag of just got done with workship. If you do have like just to have like a standard blue collar type job just within the pitch, but you're not listening to pop or pop rock, something like that, something calmer, just something more plain or vanilla, is something that's just like typical viciousness, just basically like makeshift music for fans of like death metal, I'd have to say in particular. So it's a good type tone for that. I mean, it tones down it by like mildness, but for folks that don't really pay attention as much, it may not even be traceable to the pitches of like the fact that it does feel like mildly kind of makeshift within the tone behind it. Is something like that evening kind of commerce of 545, 445 pitches like that, I had to say. But it's not like it's commercial in the hook. This is not like it's going to be like Wait and Bleed or like Enter Sandman, some of those type pitches. I feel like it could be a radio grab as far as this pitch can happen, but it's just within a ton of some good type stuff. So, two makeshift songs, two hangout songs just within the pitch behind it. Most of these are kind of more just on the go, I'd have to say. I think even Putrid Rebirth has like the relative aspect of just kind of being more in motion within the pitch, but it's actually surprising that there's not a ton of dungeon type music on here. Just more man cave dungeon type fare just in the pitch of just having a box of beer, PlayStation on, some of that type fare, pizza, and loud music blaring as far as this pitch kind of happens. Actually, the aspect, there's a little bit of more of just kind of trekking in mind, just in the aspect behind it. But I just look after to talk about the songs I didn't recommend in here. I don't know if I talked about these, but I'll go ahead and say something about them. Reanimated is just too lengthy of a song for like the relative pitch. I feel like with the randomness factor, with the complete kind of crazed bonanza typeness as to how this band displays, I feel like trying to do like a kind of power ballad type stretch or something that Metallica would do with like Wherever I May Roam, something within that relative type pitch, just didn't pull it off that well. It just needs to have like a regular type format, or at least something relatively close to it. I just feel like death metal trying to do like a power ballad type stretcher, just some commerce type stretcher, didn't really pull off the appeal. I mean, maybe I could get used to that one later, but at least as of this moment, I didn't see it as much. And then Disgusting Beyond Belief was just kind of, this was a real frenetic type one. This is one of the ones that was kind of had to do with like the concept of me just questioning about this particular project, but it's just all over the place. I mean, it's definitely very vicious in terms of the guitar work and the band work on here. It really nails it, but just the format behind it is just so sporadic. It's just kind of within the concept. Just made it kind of a little bit more of like differential kind of digest here. It's just within the pitch. It's just kind of one. It's just kind of one that I just didn't meld with as much full blown. I'd have to say just within the tone behind it. But I look after it, just being able to say, so 4 out of 6 off this particular product. I would give this EP like an 8.25 out of 10 just within the tone. I feel like it's just the crazy factor is definitely here. They have the band work, they're able to do it, they nail these death metal vocals. There does happen to be like some good settings as far as this pitch kind of happen, just more in motion, just in the sense of not just death metal around the house, just actually having some moments for like some other type fares to have some excitement, to bring some of that excitement to makeshift and just traverse, getting errands done, some of that type fares. So some good type concepts. So maybe the social score would actually get a higher score than the actual score of this product. I'd probably say like the social score would probably be at least a 9 out of 10 just within pitch. A lot of this, even though I don't recommend Reanimated, I can see some folks liking that just within the same tone as like songs like Wherever I May Roam, some of those type fares. So it's just kind of within the pitch. This EP does not really have a single, but within the fare behind it, there's a lot of social grabs upon this product, and it's pretty affable just in the sense of their viciousness and just the quality that they do with the, like their band work. So it's kind of within the tone, but it's just the fact that death metal is just not, it's just the fact that death metal is just not that commonly commercial. But I still would have to say within the tone, no single, not much promotion just within the tone, but I would still say it's relatively vicious for the most part and just nails it. So 9 social social. In terms of the future, like the most recent thing that Horrendous has done has been that 2023 album that I was talking about before, the Ontological Mysterium, which is a pretty good pitch. I'm gonna have to get to some more of these type ones. But yeah, this was a transaction that was just kind of within the relative aspect. It was just some toil here to kind of get pretty similar to Mudvayne and initially Metallica and like folks like that. I'd have to say just Slipknot in certain days, just within some of those type pitches I'd have to say in particular, but some good type aspects, definitely some vicious type appeal I'd have to say, and just overall for the most part this is has more winners on here than it doesn't. It's just kind of within the pitch. It just takes some grafting as far as those tones going to happen, but for the most part it does nail these vibes in like a social and kind of just more kind of commie type sense and just kind of more viciousness just within death metal of having some new aspects.